This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A Winnipeg landlord who evicted dozens of tenants from his College Avenue apartment building is facing $9,000 in provincial penalties. As the CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports, the landlord's lawyer says his client has appealed.
In July, dozens of tenants were forced out of this apartment block on College Avenue with little warning. The province alleged those evictions were illegal.
People told CBC News they were offered cash to move out and that many of their belongings were thrown out. In the days that followed, the Residential Tenancies Branch issued 32 orders to the landlord. The province hired locksmiths and security to allow tenants to move back into the building. The Residential Tenancies Branch has since fined the landlord $9,000. Kelly Vassis is the sole director of the numbered Manitoba company that owns 285 College. His lawyer told CBC Wednesday his client has appealed the penalties. A hearing is scheduled for the end of October. University of Manitoba housing expert Sarah Cooper says, despite having some of the strongest residential tenancy regulations in Canada, Manitoba's still aren't tough enough.
$9,000 seems very low for displacing that many people and causing that much stress and upheaval to people's lives, like to suddenly lose your home overnight, I think would be incredibly stressful.
The Minister of Consumer Protection, Lisa Naylor, says she doesn't think the penalties against the landlord are severe enough either. But right now, a $1,000 fine per tenant who's come forward is the highest amount under provincial law. Naylor says she's actively working to amend the legislation and strengthen tenants' rights. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, you may have noticed a number of 7-Eleven stores are closing their doors. Theft and violence were pointed out as problems at least 2 of them just months ago. The CBC's Alana Cole explains.
There's a sign in the window. This 7-Eleven on Ellis Avenue is closed. So is this one on McPhillips. The two were on a list of 10 Winnipeg 7-Eleven stores shared with City Councillors Ross Eady and Vivian Santos in August. At the time, 7-Eleven told them crime, including theft and violence, were putting them at risk of closing.
It's very concerning when we see retailers, making decisions that they believe they have to make to close their doors because of the amount of theft that they're facing.
At least 2 other 7-Elevens not on the list have also closed, including this one on McPhillips and this one on Pembina. 7-Eleven could not be reached for comment about why the stores shut their doors. Councillor Ross Eady says he hasn't talked to anyone from the company recently, but says concerns need addressing.
This kind of theft is bad at all retail stores right now.
The province launched a pilot retail anti-theft initiative earlier this year, paying officers overtime in areas hit hard by retail crime like Osborne Village, the Exchange District, and the West End. Eady wants to see it expand to other areas. The mayor wants it made permanent. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says the province is looking at the possibilities.
And what we're talking about is making this initiative, some of the elements of this initiative permanent going forward. And really what that means is we're going to be bringing on new officers that are funded by the province of Manitoba that will, build off of some of the successes we saw with the retail crime initiative.
Wiebe says they're going to keep listening to retailers. Just last week, a summit looking at retail crime was held in Winnipeg. Wiebe says 7-Eleven was one of the sponsors. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg firefighters have struggled to keep up with the number of vacant building fires. Last year, the city started billing for the cost of sending crews to battle the blazes. But now the fire department says those fees may have done more harm than good. Last year, the city issued a total of $1.15 million worth of fees for fires in vacant buildings. So far, they've collected nearly $78,500. In some cases, the high fees may have discouraged property owners from making repairs, leading to repeat fires. City staff recommend lowering the fees in the hope more owners will pay up. Mayor Scott Gillingham says he's open to changes.
The goal is to get the result we need, and the result we need is fewer vacant and derelict properties, and those properties turned into developed properties.
The city assesses fees based on the number of fire trucks and other equipment responding. The average fee per property is $26,000, with the highest bill for $138,000. The city recommends a new set of fees, starting at $5,000 for the first fire, up to $20,000 for the fourth and subsequent fires. The William White neighborhood has some of the highest numbers of vacant building fires. Neighborhood Association President Darrell Warren doesn't support lowering the fees.
To the people in the neighborhood, they would probably see the city as being weak. And what I mean by that is the city being weak is they're backing down from these guys.
The city would also write off about $900,000 worth of fees issued last year. The service stopped issuing new fees in December after hearing complaints from property owners. Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Chief Christian Schmidt says in some cases, owners were in the midst of making repairs when a repeat fire occurred.
We need to be cognizant of that, and we don't want to be contributing to some of the problems. We want to be helping to resolve some of the issues in the city.
The city also recommends introducing a new process to waive fees for property owners in some circumstances. The Executive Policy Committee will debate the proposed changes next week. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More housing could be coming to areas around malls and commercial corridors in Winnipeg. The city is holding open houses on proposed zoning changes to allow construction without the need for a public hearing. Planning Director Hazel Boris says the plan aims to address the need for affordable homes and allow housing construction close to businesses and services. Developers will still have the option of going through a hearing under the existing by rules.
We want to be very cognizant of never removing someone's rights throughout this process. So that's why the existing underlying zoning is also still available to people, as well as this kind of more complete community option as well.
Open houses are between 4:30 this afternoon and 7 this evening at Canada Inn's Polo Park, and again tomorrow at Canada Inn's Fort Garry. A public hearing is expected in November. Well, there are now more housing options for seniors in the city. A residential complex officially opened today in Charleswood. The senior residence of Oakdale is located near Grant Avenue. EdgeCorp Development says 75% of the 270 rental units are already leased. One of 3 buildings is now open for occupancy, with some residents starting to move in. According to the developer, all units are affordable under CMHC criteria. EdgeCorp President Keith Merkel calls it a positive addition to the community.
Street improvements, sidewalks have been well received by the residents. And we think this is an excellent addition to the community of Charleswood, which has a much needed need for apartment housing, both in seniors and in just market rent for non-seniors as well.
The second building in the complex is slated to open in the first half of 2025, and the third will be the Charleswood Active Living Centre, a nonprofit that provides social and recreational programs for seniors. A Winnipeg man has been charged with human smuggling after he was found helping 6 migrants to illegally cross the U.S. border into Canada. Police say the 42-year-old was charged after he was found driving 6 people, including their luggage, east of the port of entry in Emerson nearly 2 weeks ago. 5 of the passengers are from various parts of Africa, and the other is a permanent resident of Canada. They range from 30 to 53 years old, and all were arrested and taken to the border for processing. Well, Riley Lachuk is off this week, but he was calling our previous weather summer 3.0. I think the beginning of this week could be summer 4.0. Let's bring in weather specialist Ethan Williams. Ethan.
Well, Brittany, we're talking about potentially record-setting temperatures, especially in parts of southwestern Manitoba today, as we are seeing a summer-like resurgence in temperatures, not only in the southwest, but across much of southern Manitoba, including in the Winnipeg area. Reading at Glenboro today, 29 degrees. Now, If we got to 30, that would not actually be the latest in the year that we've seen a 30-degree temperature in Manitoba. That record goes back to October 16th of 1945, but we're certainly pretty close to that. We're going to have another warm one tomorrow. Again, another warm overnight, double digits already by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. The only difference is this time we see cloud cover starting to build in through the day. So a mix of sun and cloud, but 20 degrees by noon, and then a nice 24 degrees by 4 o'clock with some cloud and a little bit of wind. But I'll let you know how long the cloud's going to be sticking around, Brittany, in my full forecast coming up.
All right, summer 4.0 it is. Thanks, Ethan. Well, with crime increasing, the province is making a move to try and restrict the sale of machetes, knives, and swords in Manitoba. That and more local news straight ahead after this short break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Manitoba's government is cracking down on the sale of machetes. A new bill before the legislature will make it harder to buy these tools, which are sometimes used as weapons. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze live in the newsroom. So, Ian, what does the province have in mind for this?
New restrictions, Brittany, that prevent anyone under 18 from going into a store and buying machetes, swords, and other metal blades. This is an attempt from the government to curb the spike in machete attacks in recent years. If this bill passes, adults buying these products must show a photo ID, and retailers must keep records for 2 years of everyone who's purchased these products. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says Manitoba would be the first province in Canada to implement these restrictions.
This bill is modeled after successful regulatory changes that were made restricting the sale of bear spray, which has helped to reduce the violent crimes involving bear spray by nearly 25% in Winnipeg.
But if this bill passes, machetes and swords can still be bought online with no restrictions. Wiebe says he's written to Amazon, hoping the company follows the province's lead.
So meanwhile, some new concerns were raised today that paramedic students will be entering the field without enough training. So can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, well, the path to becoming a paramedic has gotten a little easier. Students no longer need to finish a course about anatomy and physiology before enrolling in paramedicine. PC health critic Kathleen Cook raised concerns about this today in question period. She's heard from a paramedic who suggested eliminating this requirement will water down paramedic training.
Tabled an email from a concerned paramedic who says that it will result in substandard care. I'm not an expert in paramedicine. I can't tell you whether that's going to happen, but when somebody who is an expert in paramedicine tells me that's what's going to happen, I find that concerning.
The College of Paramedics says the anatomy and physiology prerequisite was only introduced last year. The health minister explained that this course turned out to be a barrier to getting people to enroll in the program. They say students will still be trained in anatomy and physiology while studying paramedicine. Brittany.
All right, CBC's Ian Fraze live this evening. Thank you, Ian. A 25-year-old woman has been charged in connection to the death of a 56-year-old man earlier this year. Edgar Allen Bear was from Peguis First Nation but had been living in Winnipeg. On Monday, Brianne Joan Briere was arrested. She's charged with manslaughter and obstructing justice and is being held in custody. A 27-year-old man had already been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Families in the RM of North Norfolk say they're frustrated. They don't have an affordable daycare. That's why parents are taking it into their own hands to create a 30-spot facility in Austin. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has the story.
Just the sweetest.
11-month-old Sterling cruises around what will one day be a daycare. His mom, Nicole Blythe, had him 5 years after her daughter, because her family couldn't afford to have 2 kids in childcare at the same time. Blythe is now a board member with the North Norfolk Child Care Center, a group fundraising to bring a daycare to Austin.
Seeing our kids and seeing the benefit for the community, right? We're all very community-minded individuals. And I think that's what drives us, is that we know the struggle firsthand.
The board wants to bring $10 a day daycare to their community because the closest option is 30 minutes away. But first, they need a building to house the daycare, which has been donated by a community group.
So if we can assist the future parents of our municipality, let's get it done, right? Because somebody has to start, and we have to start somewhere.
Manitoba is what experts call a childcare desert. That means there's only one spot for every 5 kids who need it. The Manitoba Child Care Association says it's common that a lack of childcare access affects parents' careers and family planning.
That, the moment that they learn that they're expecting, they're going on waiting lists. And the reality is that the waiting lists across the province are really high. I've heard of facilities with upwards to 700-800 on a waiting list.
Board member Jessica Dirksen says she couldn't afford or find daycare options for her twin sons, who are now 20 months old. She says it feels like rural Manitobans are missing out when it comes to affordable daycare options.
It is extremely frustrating. I feel like they forget about us, that we're out here and we do require childcare too. We also have jobs. It's not like we don't work out here. And it's just, it's kind of frustrating to not have the help that we should get.
So far, the board has raised about $100,000. They estimate the total cost of the project will be just under $500,000 for designs and renovations. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Austin.
Well, it was a beautiful day to get outside today, but what does the week have in store? Let's bring in Ethan Williams for a look on our forecast. Ethan.
Well, some nice sunshine, Brittany, to go along with those very warm temperatures that we've seen in parts of the province today. A little bit of some high cloud moving through the north, but other than that, not a lot to talk about. Futurecast, though, showing us that is about to change. We're not expecting a whole lot of moisture, but over these next couple of days here, a few systems moving on by. Let's start with what's happening overnight tonight and into early tomorrow morning. We got a little bit of rain moving in from northern Saskatchewan, bringing some scattered showers to portions of the northern Interlake and parts of the north around Thompson, eastward into Shamattawa. I think we could pick up a few millimeters. It's because of this low pressure area that's going to be moving into our province as we head through the day. You see that centered over Winnipeg by tomorrow evening, but I think for southern Manitoba, it's mostly just going to be cloud cover we're talking about here. I don't think we're really looking for anything in the way of moisture. That moves out and we're left with clearing conditions for Friday, but in behind that, another system starting to move in from Saskatchewan, which will bring some rain showers through. So the first round of showers tomorrow and overnight tonight for the north, not really producing all that much. That next system moving in from Saskatchewan may bring us a couple of millimeters through parts of southern Manitoba. Could bring maybe a 5 to 10 in the Thompson area by the time all is said and done over these next few days. But it'll certainly be picking up the winds a little bit over the next couple of days here. I think tomorrow we're probably looking for gusts 40 to 50 in Winnipeg and the Red River Valley, especially overnight as we head kind of Thursday into Friday. I think we could be seeing that a little bit. And then, of course, still a little bit breezy along the Hudson Bay coast as we get into the latter part of Friday, but high pressure starting to calm the winds down in parts of southern Manitoba as we get into Friday and likely for the weekend as well, which means it's a good day to take the dog out for a walk. Tomorrow might be, again, a little bit on the cloudy side as we head through the day. I think starting in the morning, we'll kind of have a sun-cloud mix and then increasing cloudiness, but you shouldn't need the rain jacket because I think, as I say, that rain's going to mostly be staying to the north. But no problem because Poppy is ready to go, has a jacket and everything and a nightlight too. Thanks so much to Heather for sending in that photo of Poppy. And a reminder, you can always send your photos to talkback@cbc.ca. I'll have a look at tonight and tomorrow's provincial forecast, Brittany, coming up.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, all eyes are on Florida. You're looking at a live shot of the Naples Pier coming up. Hurricane Milton about to make landfall in western Manitoba. The damage could be catastrophic. We'll have more on how residents are bracing for the worst after the break. Stay with us. To news south of the border now, where all eyes are on Florida. Hurricane Milton is now just hours away from making landfall in western Florida. Top officials say the damage could be catastrophic after it hits late tonight or early tomorrow. The CBC's Katie Simpson has spent the day near Orlando as residents there prepare for the worst.
Now come along with me. We're going to show you what preparations look like. Right now we're in a mobile home park and you can see some of the trailers have been boarded up. This is an area that police tell us is known to be flooded, and so people are taking some precautions. There are some people who've left the area, but we've got wooden planks up on some of the trailers here, and we've got another one just over here, just to give you a sense of what it looks like in some of these neighborhoods where really dangerous conditions are expected to roll through. The most serious effects of this storm are going to be in the Gulf Coast, the Tampa Bay, Sarasota areas. That's where there's life-threatening storm surge, hurricane force winds. There is so much concern. Authorities have warned people that if they did not follow those evacuation orders, if they do need help, help might not be able to get there. They're describing it as a catastrophic situation, and they are concerned that it will be deadly for those that did not follow those evacuation orders. Here in Orlando, when you talk to the people who are either hunkering down or planning on going to shelters, there's a real mix sort of people that we've spoken to today, and you can tell that there is really a sense of unease heading into Milton.
A little nervous. I see all these houses boarded up, and we have not done anything because I didn't think it was going to hit Central Florida, as everyone is now saying.
Are you nervous at all?
No, not at all. I've been through enough of them that we'll be okay. I know we're getting 100-mile-an-hour winds, but I think this house can withstand it.
It's my first time. I don't feel afraid. I just, God knows what she's doing. You have to go through.
This is expected to be a once-in-a-lifetime type of storm. The hurricane-strength winds, the storm surge. There's also the concern of tornadoes. People are being urged to stay indoors and wait for this storm to pass, and it's expected to be an incredibly difficult 48 hours for the state of Florida. Katie Simpson, CBC News, outside of Orlando, Florida.
And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on everything that happens down there over the coming days. But many environmental factors go into creating a hurricane. But scientists say one of them has been pushing recent storms to new limits, and that's ocean heat. On in Ram now on what some are calling a marine heat wave.
Milton started as a growl in the Gulf of Mexico, and within 2 days became a terrifying roar. The fastest shift from tropical depression to Category 5 hurricane ever seen there.
2 days later, we were at 180 miles per hour winds. That kind of intensification is just extremely rare, if not unheard of.
It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours.
That speed leaving seasoned weather watchers speechless.
I apologize. This is just horrific.
And what's feeding the beast? What fed Hurricane Helene just before it? Record ocean heat. This is the global average sea surface temperatures for roughly the last 30 years. But in 2023 and 2024, every month the heat has surpassed that by a huge margin. And zooming into the Gulf of Mexico, it's more intense. 2024's heat so far, higher than the last decade. And a few degrees matter.
Small differences in temperature, boom, big differences in the amount of water vapor that's getting put into the atmosphere. And that water vapor is really the fuel of the storm.
The other conditions that let Milton rage was a lack of other weather patterns, slower winds, air offering less resistance to the rapidly forming vortex. Watching that build up especially troubling for those in the hurricane's path.
Especially for the area that I grew up in, I feel it's very heavy.
And climate scientists link the warm oceans that supercharged Milton to the planet warming effect from burning fossil fuels.
It traps energy around the planet close to the surface and warms up our air temperatures. But that also contributes to that heat getting eventually down into the ocean.
And as Florida braces for the full might of Milton, researchers with World Weather Attribution are already looking at how much of its scale and ferocity was caused by climate change. That analysis expected within days. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Justin Trudeau has arrived in Laos to attend the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit. It's the first ever official visit by a Canadian Prime Minister to the country. Canada is not a member of the association, but it does have a strategic partnership with the bloc, and Ottawa is looking to secure a key trade deal with it. CBC's Ashley Burke reports.
The Prime Minister is now here in Laos for 2 days of talks with Southeast Asian leaders to try and advance trade and diplomatic ties at a summit with one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Justin Trudeau was also supposed to travel to Germany for a high-profile defense meeting about the war in Ukraine, but the host, U.S. President Joe Biden, postponed that meeting with dozens of allies, saying he needed to stay in the U.S. to respond to Hurricane Milton. That means Trudeau is cutting this trip short and heading back to Ottawa after his first official visit here in Laos. This is Trudeau's third year in a row attending the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit, a first for a Canadian Prime Minister. Government officials say it was important for Trudeau to travel more than 24 hours to the other side of the world to be here to show how serious Canada is about becoming a more engaged partner in the region. Canada is currently negotiating a trade deal with this bloc of 10 countries that it's hoping to finalize next year. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Vientiane, Laos.
Israel and Hezbollah continue to trade fire across the Lebanon border. And on both sides of that border today, there were more casualties. CBC's Chris Brown reports from the northern Israeli city of Haifa.
In Israel's north, alerts from incoming Hezbollah missiles were constant, with the streaks of Israeli interceptors filling the skies, knocking out most, but not all. The worst damage was in Kiryat Shimona, where a couple reportedly out walking their dog was killed. And in Haifa, 5 people were sent to hospital with injuries. Our CBC News team visited the scene of an earlier strike that knocked a hole in the roof of an apartment building, leaving missile fragments everywhere but not causing any injuries. There was a big noise and a lot of dust, said the maintenance manager, who'd been in the apartment 30 seconds before. People can't live here because they're afraid to come back and sleep here. From the owner of the fishing shop below, we heard support for Israel's actions against Hezbollah in Lebanon. I think this is very good, he said. What did Netanyahu say? This is for generations to come, that there won't be any wars anymore. But just seconds later, more alarms and more missiles, with our team taking shelter in the walk-in refrigerator of the grocery shop next door. Since Israel launched its ground invasion of Lebanon, the Haifa area, 40 kilometers south of the border, in Israel's third largest city, has become one of Hezbollah's key targets. After having much of its leadership assassinated by Israel, Hezbollah has attempted to project strength with its mass rocket fires and by claiming that Israeli troops have made little progress on the ground.
The country should be very concerned.
Ehud Omer is a former Israeli prime minister. He negotiated Israel's exit from the last war with Lebanon in 2006, and he fears the cost of defeating Hezbollah militarily is too high.
Are we ready to have 100 missiles, rockets shot at Israeli civilian centers every day with more than 1 million people sitting in shelters for the whole day? I mean, what is the strategy?
In Lebanon, Israel's air assault has been unrelenting, with at least 4 people killed near Sidon and a building housing displaced families, according to the local mayor. Chris Brown, CBC News, in Haifa.
The world of rock music has been caught off guard, this time by a star performer's allegations of sexual abuse. They're in a new book. It's a memoir by Sum 41 singer Derek Whibley. The CBC's Magda Gebrselassie has the details.
The faster we're falling, we're stopping and stalling, we're running in circles.
rocked out on some of the biggest stages. Now Derek Whibley is shocking the music world, making waves with his new memoir.
There's things in the book that I was like, I thought I would take that to my grave.
The Sum 41 singer alleges he was coerced into a sexual relationship with his former manager, Greg Norrie. But CBC has not independently verified Whibley's allegations. Norrie himself, a big name in the Canadian rock scene, the frontman of Trouble Chargers. Whibley writes he was just 16, starting out, when Norrie took him under his wing, introducing him to drugs and alcohol, grooming him, Whibley alleges. Then when he was 18, kissing him in a bathroom stall while Whibley was high on ecstasy. He alleges Norrie forced him to continue a sexual relationship for some time, berating Whibley when he tried to end it. I started to unravel mentally and physically, Whibley writes. Music journalist Karen Bliss says she was in the industry at the time.
There's definitely a power difference with a young artist or any artist and someone in a perceived position of power. Maybe it's up to us as adults in the music industry to go to that young person and say, are you okay?
Greg Norrie has not responded to CBC News' request for comment, but he told the Globe and Mail these are false allegations. He also said he retained a defamation lawyer. Whibley also hasn't spoken with us, his band on their final tour, wrapping up in Toronto in January. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
A new NHL season has just begun. The Jets' home opener here on Friday. But the way you watch the game this year is changing. We'll have more on that after the break. Stay with us. When Foster Hewitt first shouted, "He shoots, he scores," catching the action was as simple as turning on a radio. Tonight, a new NHL season rekindles the old excitement. But the days of just flicking a switch are history. Peter Armstrong looks at the fast-changing game of hockey broadcasts.
Opening night, a new season, new hope for fans, a fresh start for teams.
Drops one, shot, score!
And this season, it's not just new teams or new plans. It's new ways to watch as well.
It's a new home for hockey.
Amazon Prime is now streaming some hockey games after making a deal with Rogers.
Look at Cooley go through the middle of the ice.
It's all part of a rapidly changing broadcast landscape. To watch every NHL game this season, you'll need to subscribe to Sportsnet, TSN, TVA, and Amazon Prime.
I think we're headed for an era of greater complication.
Back in 2013, Rogers Communications bought up the exclusive rights to all nationally broadcast NHL games for $5.2 billion. That deal doesn't expire until the end of next season. But NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman says negotiations will start soon, the beginning of 2025, he told the Sports Business Journal last month, adding that Rogers gets first crack at renegotiating its current deal. And that is something Rogers has said it wants to do.
It's something we're very interested in and something we will chase and certainly expect to be at the table.
Second and goal.
Experts say other sports leagues have found ways of spreading out broadcast rights over multiple broadcasters and streamers. That drives up the price and makes it harder for fans to even figure out where the game on any given night is being aired.
If you have 6 people that want your product, then you can figure a creative way to give each of the 6 a slice. You will get more than if you charge one the entire amount of money.
And every year, there are more ways to slice that pie. And though some may bemoan the changes,
I think it's actually going to be easier, and they're trying to move the product to where people are, as opposed to trying to preserve an old model.
It's on Monday.
Whether it's the game or the way we watch it, the old model is long gone. And changes to how we watch the game are only starting as the NHL gets closer to a new deal in 2026. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like hockey season right now. Let's bring in weather specialist Ethan Williams.
Well, Brittany, the warm temperatures that we've been seeing the last little while here, thanks to this nice little ridge in the jet stream, a portion of that heat event that they had in the southwestern United States is what has moved our way. That is going to start to break down a little bit as we head through the next couple of days here, as we see an area of low pressure move through. But I want you to keep your eyes out west, because we have another ridge starting to build into the jet stream as we get into the weekend. And eventually, some nice temperatures will be coming back and heading our way once again. 20-degree temperatures remains to be seen. But here's what we know for overnight tonight. It's going to be another warm one. We might have temperatures, particularly in Winnipeg and the Red River Valley, not even dropping into single-digit territory overnight tonight. Even in western sections where it's been cooler the last couple of nights, probably staying near 5 degrees or so. Northern Manitoba, again, we start to see that rain and a little bit of that system move in from Saskatchewan overnight. So we do have the chance of showers in many locations. Otherwise, we are looking at mostly cloudy conditions overnight tonight, and that's how we're going to start the day tomorrow as well. Some showers moving through central areas, again, including in the Thompson area, I think is where we'll see the most moisture, maybe upwards of 5 millimeters as we head through the day. But that is going to pretty quickly clear away. By the noon hour, you see that's moved out of much of the north, and we're actually starting to get some clearing conditions out further west. But I think it's kind of going to be a sun-cloud mix or a mostly cloudy day for many northern locations. For southern Manitoba, again, we're starting sunnier in eastern sections, a little bit closer to the Saskatchewan border. We already have that cloud cover there. But again, starting the day on a warm note, will already be over 20 degrees by the noon hour in many locations. That cloud's starting to make its way eastward, and then by the time we get into the later afternoon hours and for the commute home, that's when we're going to start to see pretty much all of the south in the cloud. But again, the chance of showers, I think, is going to primarily stay to our north. So after a bit of a cloudier day tomorrow and a little bit breezy at times, things going to clear out nicely for Friday. Temperatures dropping back down a little closer to seasonal, but still above that. A little bit of a breeze hanging around for Friday during the day. I think those winds should diminish through the day, and then by the time we get into Saturday, that's just in time for our next weather maker. Maybe some showers for your Saturday, Brittany. I'll have a full look at the 7-day forecast coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Ethan. October is Women's History Month. It's a time to honor and celebrate notable women and their achievements. And throughout this month, we're going to introduce you to women who are breaking barriers and helping ensure this province is a little better off. This woman is a passionate champion of Manitoba's creative and cultural sector. Carol Vivier joins me now. Hi, Carol.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, Carol, you spent 3 decades as the CEO and film commissioner for Manitoba Film and Music. Manitoba would quite literally not be what it is, this industry, without you. At the helm, you were trying to sell Manitoba to the world. What did it take to convince Hollywood bigwigs to come shoot in the prairies?
Oh, it's funny because I think about my first trips to Los Angeles, and we didn't even have GPS then. There was nothing. I was using maps, like actual paper maps to work out my routes. But you know what? I think they're very business oriented in Los Angeles. And I think as long as you came across credible and you knew what you were doing, you got a meeting. And so even though at first we certainly didn't have flights, we didn't have a full crew, they still took the meetings, which I really now, and thinking back, really respect that. And then I remember one of the producers I met with said to me, you know what, Carol, you need an incentive to bring us to Winnipeg, to Manitoba. You're just not on the map. And so that's what prompted getting that tax credit. And we were the first Manitoba, the first province in Western Canada to have a tax credit. And it really started that journey. It really helped a lot. So I'm very grateful for having that.
Yeah, you pioneered that film tax credit. As you said, it was the first in Western Canada. That was back in '97. It was really a game changer. So why was that so important to the industry and for you to really help facilitate that to get things going here?
Well, it was really important to the industry because I think you needed to add incentives. And there were incentives in other places, but not as good as the one we ended up with. And it showed them we were serious, we were in the game, and that we really wanted their business. And so for me, it was just a really critical piece of the infrastructure we needed to have here. Along with that first studio that was built, that was really groundbreaking. And, we just continued on, and then we just had great training programs. And even within the tax credit, we had provisions that if we didn't have a crew person available, willing, or able here, they could bring that crew person in from anywhere in the world. But we need to have, if they maximize that, we needed to have 2 Manitobans trained. And so that allowed us to keep building our crew base to where it is today. And like now, it's like crazy how many shoots are going on. I just love it.
It's amazing, and I don't think any Winnipegger can say they haven't seen a film set as they've walked around downtown or in many parts of the city. I love seeing the Christmas movies shooting. So is there a movie or a show that was really like a feather in your cap that you saw when it came here, maybe an actor or actress?
Well, I think there was 2 films that really were breakout for us. One of them was Capote. That was an amazing film. It was won an Academy Award. And then Shall We Dance? Shall We Dance was the largest feature film we ever had here, and it just opened those doors. So I would have to say, for offshore production, those 2 really kind of set the bar for us.
You are also a Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal recipient. You've been honored with both the Order of Manitoba and last week the Order of Canada. What do these accolades mean to you?
Oh, it's kind of like pinch me. It's really amazing. It's quite incredible, rewarded for something that you love doing. And I never expected them. You don't know that you're nominated. So when you get those calls to tell you that you are now a recipient, it really quite literally knocks you off your socks. So I'm very grateful for being honored this way. I never expected it, and I'm really flattered and honored.
Well, Carol, you are one of our women's superstars this month, and I have you here in just a few words and seconds. What would you tell somebody that wants to go into this same field, or your younger self looking back on this?
Oh, to my younger self, I would just say, do what you did. Don't be afraid. Take those risks. When something's presented to you, that's a career move or an opportunity, don't be afraid to do it. Just take those risks, take those chances. It'll always pay off. As long as you're passionate and committed to what you're doing, people will respond to you, and it has to come from your heart, and it has to be sincere, and people know that. So as long as you're doing that, just keep doing what you're doing. It'll happen.
Wise words. Carol, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We need to take a quick break, but Ethan Williams is back with the last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
This place. Every corner of Manitoba has its own story. Every community has a tale to tell.
And CBC is here to share them.
Everywhere you are.
In every way we can.
Watching, listening, reading, streaming,
sharing. CBC, telling Manitoba's story wherever you are.
Well, as we previously mentioned, October is Women's History Month, and there was some history made last night in the NHL. Jessica Campbell made her debut as the first ever female assistant coach in the league. She was behind the bench for the Seattle Kraken as they took on the St. Louis Blues. The 32-year-old from Saskatchewan was named assistant coach in July.
Well, after a cloudier and a bit breezier day tomorrow, we're looking at the clouds clearing away for Friday. Some breezes in the morning before those die down into the afternoon. Just in time for our next weather system Saturday. A little bit of a cooler day with a good chance of showers before things clear out for Sunday. And after that, temperatures looking to get nicer basically as we head through the week. Back into the mid-teens, above seasonal conditions, maybe even some 20-degree temperatures a little further past Wednesday. But those temperatures staying above the freezing mark in the overnight hours as well, especially as we head through Monday, Tuesday next week. We get close to that freezing mark, Brittany, but looks like we'll just be staying a little bit above that.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Well, it's the end of an era in Las Vegas with the demolition of the Tropicana, the last casino linked to Sin City's mob days. The legendary Tropicana went out in true Vegas style early this morning with fireworks as the opening act for the implosion. Built in 1957, the casino and hotel had ties to organized crime through mobster Frank Costello. The Tropicana, renamed the Tropigala for the movie, was also featured as Michael Corleone's casino in The Godfather Part 2. It was demolished to make way for a future baseball stadium for the relocating Oakland Athletics. Very cool. And I love the fireworks show to top it all out. Well, that is it for us here. As Ethan told you, tomorrow looking like the best day this week to get outside, take the pup out for a walk and enjoy those above normal temperatures. That's it for us tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow.